John Daversa Podcast.
You're playing all the time, you're writing all the time, you're putting out content all the time. Boom, 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 boom. And, talking about your Patreon channel, the books you've written, the albums that you're putting out, all the touring and everything. How are you doing all of this? And I think the core of my asking that to you is what is the motor behind that? What's the mission and the purpose, and where does that dedication come from?
Good question.
Because there's a lot of fire in you.
Yeah. I don't know. Why bother? I never even thought of that was an option. Now I'm going to rethink the whole thing. I'm like,
oh, no.
Well, yeah, John was telling me that I don't have to actually do all this stuff either.
This episode is with Philly native Ari Hoenig, who I've admired for such a long time. We got to sit down and talk about music, life, and drumming, and entrepreneurship, and his life as a creative being. And we even got to play a little bit, so check out our conversation. All right, I'm here with musician, drummer, educator, composer, Ari Hoenig.
Yep. Dad too. That's like 80% of it. Yeah,
that's 80%. An important
The other
one.
stuff is like the 20% they share. Thank you, John. Really good to be here.
It's and as I was telling you before, we're just having a space to talk about how life relates to music and how music relates to life. And I've been following your career for so long, and you are doing so many things. You're juggling so many pieces of the puzzle all the time. So I hope that we can address some of those things in this podcast.
With pleasure.
I'm just going to start with a little foundational question. Just tell us a little bit about your musical upbringing from your family and what those influences were like, and what was the music that was being played in the house, and what were the inspirations, and where do you go from there?
Sure. Yeah. So I do come from a very musical family. Classical musicians, actually, everybody.
Really?
Yeah. So both my parents are professional classical musicians. My father's a conductor, choral, conductor. So, but he plays piano and he plays some like folk guitar and stuff like that too. And my mother, also classical violinist, also kind of a pianist, and plays multiple instruments actually, but really in that classical and really I would say even more specific like Baroque style. So the music that I think I really grew up listening to, we had Bach, so much Bach, and Mozart and Beethoven, a little bit of Chopin, and I would say that was really the bulk of it. That those composers specifically. So that that's the music that I had in my head.
Was there a lot of choral music?
A lot
as well?
of choral music, sure. Yep. And also Handel and various composers, of course, too. But it was a lot of it was this Baroque style, But a lot of choral music as well. So that music is definitely buzzing around. It was and still is. Is very much kind of a part of me. And then also just in general, kind of music from, we would call it Americana or folk music. Also, I feel like I grew up with that as well. Yeah.
What are some of those examples of the Americana that you
Like,
put on the record player?
Oh yeah. Well, it wasn't so much from the record player, although sometimes, yeah. So, like for example, Pete Seeger. I'm really on the spot with this now. Folk songs like like sometimes even like slave songs, stuff like that,
Wow,
religious,
okay.
I mean, that this is that kind of history, This Little Light of Mine, I've been working on the railroad,
okay.
Those kind of things. Those were things that, that my parents would sing to me. And so, they were very kind of, I would say they had that tradition as well. Yeah.
And were you trying to pick these things out on the piano, or were you trying to pick up the violin? How did this manifest?
I played violin, was my first instrument when I was 3, and I didn't like it. But I did, take lessons, and then I switched to the piano when I was 6. And I also took lessons and did not like it either. But I think that one of the main reasons that I didn't like the violin and the piano, I didn't really have a good experience taking lessons because I was told what to do, and I didn't want to be. I wanted to. It wasn't that I didn't like music or I didn't had something wrong with the instruments. I didn't like the process of the lessons, and I didn't really want to do what I was being told to do. I guess so. I didn't have a good experience studying, I guess classical music. I don't feel like I had great teachers as a kid, but I did switch to the drums when I was 12, and I loved it really immediately, studying the drums. But I didn't really have a lot of pressure from my parents about what to practice and how to practice, and that kind of thing, which I did get with the other instruments, and so I think that was part of it.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
You found an instrument that was a little bit outside of the box. So
it was a lot outside of the box.
So you could have some freedom.
Yeah, so I could have some freedom, and I could be creative.
Independent creative thought.
Independence, right, exactly. And so then I started feeling that, and I could still play music, but I didn't feel that, that I had to conform to this thing that I didn't really want to conform. It wasn't even anything wrong with the thing. Yeah. It was just that that some kids are just like that. I have a couple of daughters now, and I'm, trying to deal with music lessons. It's a similar kind of thing, is how you make something fun, and enjoyable and not kind of overwhelming. And also everybody's different, right? Every person is different the way they learn. Some people like to be told what to do. They like a lot of structure, and some people don't. And some people, it really just depends on the person a lot.
It makes me think how important it is for the teacher to recognize how that person learns, and to have that awareness and that upper consciousness to be able to see from above, this student needs that, this student needs to be pushed like this student I need to kind of back off and let them find their own way, but somehow subtly put the information in front of them so they think that I didn't put it in front of them, all those things.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of times the American school system hasn't quite figured out in the way that it's still thought of as classes being very regimented, the same for everybody. They want to make it uniform, and a lot of times they don't allow space to be able to form it, with the actual student in mind, and to mold it to the student if you can. And obviously you can't always do that if you're teaching a lot of students at once. But if you're teaching private lessons, there's really no reason not to do that. Everybody should not learn exactly the same thing. We'd be very bored. We'd have a really boring existence if everybody learned exactly the same thing, especially in private lessons. Everybody should be allowed to be an individual, at least, to some degree. This is an art form, so what's the problem? I get it that they're basics, and you want to teach the basics for sure, 100%. But at the same time, people learn differently. Yeah.
I've been feeling for a while that I think that we're moving closer and closer back to a master and apprentice type model from the institution model. And I think that we're starting to break away from those big structures where we teach everybody in the same way. And because I think more and more the students are demanding that. They're demanding, listen, this is how I learn. These are the things that I really want to focus on. How can I do that? And I really want to focus on these little things. But it's also not just about the information, of course, right? It's about spending time with the mentor is a better word. The mentor and the apprentice. So you're breaking bread together, and you're seeing how the master negotiates a contract, and because in the middle of the lesson you're taking the phone call and working things out, and it's not just by question and answer. It's like just by observing how you navigate through all these things and the music.
It's a good relationship. I've had some relationships like that with students. It's called them apprentices, and yeah, it's very effective for sure. Yeah, and it's a great way to learn if you can, but I mean, if you have 50 students, you're not going to be able to, they're not all going to be your apprentice, you know. So it's pretty limited, the number of people that you can teach like that, even if you would want to. And then of course the learning institutions kind of would need to get on board to a certain degree too.
And it's not as cost effective of a model.
Probably not. And there's lots of other things to think about, but it's certainly an interesting thought and way to learn. And I think it's can be really effective.
But perhaps it's shown up in ways where people are taking the online courses, right? And there's some live interaction with those online courses, and there's some where you're seeing the teacher just go through things, and they're also sharing things about their personal, professional life, perhaps, and how they navigated this, and all of that streaming observation is somewhat in that direction. And I know that you've been doing that a little bit too, or a lot with your Patreon channel. Not online, to divert here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, with Patreon, I do actual videos that are pre-recorded and edited that are specifically dealing with a specific point, title, what the subject is. But then I also do live, interactive things with multiple students, sometimes about specific subjects, as well. And then there's also just, online classes sometimes say, today I'm going to teach a group of, 40 musicians in, Netherlands or whatever whatever it is, and then you're doing that remote. So there's definitely a lot of options open now that everybody's comfortable with Zoom and they're comfortable teaching online, and there's a delay, but nobody cares anymore, and so yeah, there's lots of options kind of to go about that.
Yeah, it's breaking apart in a good way, I think. Oh, let me backtrack a little bit. So you're 12-ish, 14-ish. You're in Philadelphia, right?
Right. I'm from Philadelphia.
And you find yourself the drums. Mm-hmm. And so where did that come from? Because that's. I mean, I know what it created, that freedom for you, but why the drums?
Well, my parents finally said, because I didn't like the piano, and I didn't like. I mean, I don't want to say I didn't like the piano, but I didn't like my piano lessons, and I didn't like the process. I didn't want to do it, and I definitely didn't want to do violin. So they said, "Oh, 12. You're 12. We still want you to do some music, but you don't have to do. You can pick your own instrument now." So immediately, I picked the drums. Not that I thought I would. It just seemed. I don't really honestly know why I picked the drums at that point. But I will say that one of the reasons that I went for the drums is because it was an instrument that I really never heard my parents talk about. They didn't know anything about.
So it was
that instrument.
Really that.
It was really that. Yeah, that was it. That was the reason. Because every other instrument I could. Oh, you want to play the flute? Okay, well, this is how you have to practice this. I really just didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the drums was that, and then really immediately, very soon, it became something more than that, because then it became something like like a real hobby. Like, I realized that I could play not just I could play music that I was listening to on the radio, and I could make that connection from my music experience to what I was actually. My musical experience to the lessons that I was having, because I never could do that. Like, I couldn't connect, my classical piano lessons to like my regular life or what I was listening to for fun. Then I was listening to like top 40 basically, but still, there's a lot there. Then there's a lot of drums in that music. And they had good songs. They had songwriting, and they had live drummers playing pop. And so I realized, this is a connection. I can do this. I can actually play a drum beat that I'm learning in a lesson, and it fits this song that I'm listening to on the radio.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how much fun is that to just like put on Huey Lewis and go?
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of fun. It
Did,
was like,
did that bridge go into other genres of music? I mean, it must have happened at some point, right? So I'm just curious how early it happened.
I started discovering other genres of music, and as soon as I did, it happened. So the instrument didn't lead me to the other genres of music. It was just that the music. I mean, that's not necessarily true, except for jazz, because jazz, the instrument did kind of lead me to listen to jazz artists and jazz music. But other than that, I started listening to rock and heavy metal and all kinds of things, even reggae, like before any thought of a drum part or drummer, anything like that. I just wanted to listen to that music, right? Hardcore, like whatever it was. This is what was going on in my with my friends and what we were, people were listening to. And then I realized, I can actually play this if I wanted. Wouldn't that be cool, But with jazz specifically, none of my friends were really listening to jazz at that point. So it was kind of like, okay, well, this is a good music for you to check out on the drums. And then I started playing in some, kind of some ensemble youth groups. And that was kind of my first experience with it. I didn't dislike it, but I think it took me a little bit of time to really love it, and to understand it to some degree too. But I still like the independence. My parents still didn't know anything about it, so that was good, and neither did I. And I was just like, wow. One of my first jazz records was Miles Smiles.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, okay. Well, maybe I should listen again, but I don't really understand that at all. And that was my, my first feeling about it. But I had some teachers that would say, okay, you got to check out Philly Joe Jones. You got to check out Max Roach and these, Roy Haynes. And these names became like just names that I could remember, but that's it, just names. Like I didn't really associate that with music. But eventually, the songs that we play Mr. PC or a song from my father or, On Green Dolphin Street or whatever. And gradually these became songs that I would know and, repertoire that I would understand and I would hear it somewhere else. And so I think that music kind of crept up on me after starting to play the drums.
And yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then I'm just curious. So at what point did you say, okay, I want to do this? And because I know that you went to UNT for the undergrad thing, so it must have been so full of passion, so full of joy and fun. And then it's like, was there a decision to be made, even not to do it or to do it?
To just to be a professional
to be
musician
a professional
in general?
musician, yeah.
Yeah, there was. It actually, I remember the day, in fact.
Really?
Yeah, it was career day, in my high school. So career day, yeah, I mean, I went to the school and said, okay, well, this is when you want to start thinking about what you're going to do.
Probably like your junior year or something?
It was my sophomore year, I think. Sophomore, junior, but I think a sophomore. And yeah, so it was like, okay, well, I want to be a drummer. That'd be my first choice. And I think what do you want to fall back on? I think there was some thought about that as well. You can fall because I remember there was a teacher that was encouraging me to have something to fall back on. So I was going to be, I think, a smoothie maker. I have like smoothies. Yeah, make smoothies.
Somewhat random.
If I can't, it's just what I was into.
Gonna make some smoothies.
That was my second fallback.
What kind of smoothies would you like to make?
That's fruit.
Oh, yeah.
Like fresh. Yeah, fresh.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So kind of like a chef or visionary fruit visionary.
That's kind of awesome. Actually,
we say fruit visionary. Is that a thing? Yeah, let's say that.
Definitely.
But yeah, it was then, and so I didn't really know that it was within reach necessarily at that point. But as years went on, it became clearer. And when I decided to go to college, I remember thinking, there was a choice if I wanted to major in performance or major in education. And at that time, it was thought that majoring in education was somehow safer, more conservative. And then you get a job that, I don't even know if that's something. Maybe some people still think that too. I don't know, but my parents are both music teachers, and so I kind of come from a line of music teachers. So I feel like I kind of have that in my blood already. So I decided to do performance, and but I've always loved teaching, and even from when I first started, I really, really liked it. So I actually really enjoy that part of what I do now, and I think I started teaching just very, very young, really. I think I probably even started in high school teaching people, sometimes. Learned a lot from it. And it's not only do I learn, how to be a better teacher from teaching, but I learn things about how the brain processes information and how, what the best learning processes are. And just so many interesting things that, that I really credit to spending time with other people and being aware of their learning process,
Yeah. It's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. Even just the process of having to explain what it is that you do.
Sure.
Even the intuitive things.
Yeah.
The things that you do very naturally. How am I thinking about that?
Right.
And how can I express that to another person so they
it's
can
not
do
easy.
it? And then you have all the revelations about, okay, and you can do it better after.
Right. Or you at least you understand it better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I've been teaching a long time. I haven't taught. I don't have a lot of experience teaching kids that are, I would say, from let's say like 5 to 16. I do have some, but really a little bit, and so now like I have kids that are that age now. So like I do get asked sometimes to do those kind of things, and I realize like, I'm not the right person. I'm not the best person. I'm happy to do it and to try, but I'm not going to be nearly as good at that as I am about teaching somebody who's 18 or 19, because I really have a lot of experience, with teaching adults, but teaching kids, it's a whole other thing. And I would have to go through a whole other learning curve to be able to do that effectively.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I've experienced just master teachers of that 6-year-old age group or like 5-year-old, and the way they go in and just can bring out that spirit out of that child is
totally
just
doable. Yeah,
amazing. It just like fills me up to see it.
Yeah.
And you can also see the person that just knows how to go right into the 24-year-old and bring them to life and reveal those things about themselves that they hadn't seen before.
I can do that, but if you put me with a 5-year-old, and I'm going to say, okay, try this, and then they're crying at the end.
Yeah, sure.
That's going to be what happens when I do that. You don't want me.
I know.
I don't want to play the drums anymore. Oh, sorry.
All right, so you're at UNT, and I know you had a really great experience there.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
And you were telling me there were between maybe 80 or 100 drummers there at the same time.
Yeah, not all majors, but and not all jazz, but there was percussion, and there's so many drummers / percussionists. I just remember these massive classes they had for drums and percussion every week. They always had like a special guest and some sort of a clinic or something like that, and it was just so many. And it was just what you were saying before. It was like the community. You learn from the community. The thing that I loved about North Texas is that there was so much diversity as far as what people were into, the music that people were into. So there was all these kind of little cliques, not cliques in a negative way, because I never felt that they were closed, because people were always, sharing their information, their knowledge easily, and happily. But they were what they were into. You know, people were into some people
Different
were
circles.
yeah, like fusion, straight ahead, rock, you know, metal, every classical music. I mean, people were just into free jazz, like so many different aspects of music, and people were they were inspired by it. And so there's so many opportunities to draw from, not just the teachers, because the teachers were also really excellent, but there weren't that many teachers actually. But the students were just so good. And so I just basically spent my time there, like asking people, like, "Hey, how do you do this? You're practicing this? Why? What do you know?" And just asking people questions. I would just go up to people that I didn't know and like, "Well, I noticed you're practicing this. Like, why are you practicing that?" You know?
Hey, that's key, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of folks are shy to ask questions, or they don't even know what questions to ask, and so they don't ask the questions. But you know, it's that kind of spirit where you just go into it and just ask.
Yeah.
Just be out there and just see what happens, because something comes from that energy that you put out there.
Yeah, and also, you know, a credit to the school or to the place or something. But I never really came across anybody there who was like, "Oh, don't worry about it," or "You'll learn someday," or, you know, like everybody was like, "Oh, you want to know what I'm doing? Oh, sure." And then they're just happy to share whatever you want to know, you know, and they're just so excited that somebody's interested, and everybody's really, really just, you know, happy to share their information. And that's because you're learning from everybody's your teacher. It's like everybody was my teacher, even not just even my first year, but like every year that I was there. I feel like I had things to learn from nearly everybody that were in school. Not necessarily, I wasn't that I was learning everything from everybody, but everybody had a thing that they could teach me, you know, that was interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Like every place almost has a character to itself. You know, there's a vibe about a place, of course. Like you can get a vibe when you walk on campus, but it also, you know, every place has its own little personality, and that seemed like it was just a very open, giving, familial.
Open is a great word for it. Yeah, yeah. And I went to comparatively. I went there for 3 years, and then I transferred. Because I wanted to go to New York. I really wanted to move to New York. That was my kind of goal, and I think I really wanted that even before I went to college. That was just where I knew that I needed to go. But instead of just going directly to New York, I thought, oh, maybe I'm going to go to William Patterson. It was a good school, and I had seen John Riley give a clinic at North Texas, and pretty interested in what he was doing. And I thought, and I knew he taught at the school, so I was like, let me go, you know, see if I can go there. And I got in, and so I was in school for a semester there, and you know, there was really good things about it. I actually I made some very, very close friends there, and you know, had some good relationships, personal relationships that, you know, that I still have, like just friends. But and it's a big but, it was not an open situation as far as sharing information. And also, it wasn't nearly as positive. I'm not even saying that it was necessarily negative or all negative. It was just that compared to North Texas, what I was used to, moving back to the East Coast, there was just a closed thing. And people were more commenting on, you know, happy to talk about things that they didn't like about music.
Right.
And even more so than what they did like, which was a complete contrast to North Texas, because you wouldn't even, I don't think I'd ever heard anybody say that they didn't like something or why they didn't like it there. But at Patterson, it was like that was the bulk of the talk, you know? So it was really different. But you also have to think East Coast U.S. versus Southern U.S. culture. Like how the way that people just think in general, not anything to do with music specifically. So
yeah, and well intentioned too, I'm sure, because there's like a bit of that tough love thing, and you know, this is how I was taught, and you know, I'm gonna kick you in the rear end to teach you how it's done here, and you know, with love in there somewhere too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, definitely there. I mean, I think some of the teachers were. I don't know. I studied with Ed Soph at North Texas, but Ed Soph was kind of like an East Coast mentality kind of guy, and then. I don't know. I didn't. Well, yeah, I studied a lot with Ralph Peterson, who's definitely under the tough love category, but not tough. Not tough in the same way, but tough like the way that he would, relate to you and talk to you. Yeah, tough. But then, John Riley could have been, from California or something, the way he was very just like, encompassing everybody's feeling and, just wanted to give people like the best thing for them that day. And, so different styles I got. And I studied with him on the East Coast. So didn't necessarily match, but yeah, those styles are real, definitely. And it goes with the culture of the thing.
Were you writing already at that time?
Not like anything that I usable. But I started writing music. Let's say I started kind of thinking about composition. It was just something that my memory is that, so my dad, he was the music director at Germantown Friends School, which is the school that I went to before I went to high school. It's a whole school like 0 through 12, choral conductor, and he did everything like this. But after school, when I went there, I would go to his office and I would just wait for him to finish his choir rehearsal. So because he would do that after school nearly every day. And so I would be in his office like for an hour and a half, just playing like the DX7, just messing around. So this is like my first composition. I didn't realize it, but just really sitting at the piano being bored, not bored of the piano, but bored of anything, like not having anything to do except for check out different sounds on a DX7, And this is kind of the first, ways that I started to compose. And then maybe the next day I came back to the same idea that I was doing the day before. Not that I wrote anything down or even memorized something from beginning to end, but the process started there. When I started like playing piano lessons, classical piano, it actually kind of killed it. It killed my whole desire to compose. Or to really even play anything, because everything was like, you have to do this and you have to do this and read this and, but I think that inherently I really just wanted to improvise and I wanted to come up with my own thing. And the lessons made me feel like I was just doing things wrong.
Right.
But then I kind of started to come back to it in high school. I started taking jazz piano lessons. So I started understanding about harmony because nobody bothered to teach me. It was 6 years of piano. And I'm sure other people will have similar experiences in my generation, right? That you learn classical piano, but nobody tells you what a major chord is. Crazy, right? Nobody tells you anything about how harmony works because you just have to play one note after another, and that's how you're supposed to do. And it's really the opposite of the way that I wanted to approach music. So I started learning about basic harmony and not even really about improvisation, but just really chords and how to play chords more comfortably. And I really only did that for a year until I went to North Texas, and then I dropped it. I didn't do it anymore. But I had a super basic knowledge of it, and then just really focused on drumming for about 4 years, 3 years of college, and then North Jersey. And then at some point, I realized like, hey, I think I should take piano lessons again, and I did. I took piano lessons again once I was, I don't know, a year or two out of college, and that's when things started to actually really form because I had some time to really work on it, to practice, and then that's when I started writing much more music and writing music for my band that I would record, and then I guess, that stagnated for a while too, but compositionally that really helped me out a lot. And then I studied piano again, right, kind of just after COVID hit, because I had time, and that was more for really performing and improvising. So not that I'm so much studying about harmony or composition or anything like that. I'm really just studying of how to improvise and how to think, how to really play. And that was a whole other level of it, right? But those are it was really in spurts, as segments, and I tell students sometimes it's like, well, you want to do a lot of things, but you gotta you got to do one thing at a time. And sometimes we want to do one thing for a period of time and then not do it for a while and then do it again. But you can't do everything at once. You have to do some things for, and then maybe come back to it if you want. Keep a note that you wanted to do that. I have a terrible education of history. Just didn't have good history teachers in school. And so now I'm like, well, I need to learn history and better study it. 50. Okay. Reading about World War I. Well, it's good that I'm doing it at some point,
Yeah. At the perfect time. It's the time when you're ready for it.
Yeah, and there's just so many things that I missed like that I can come back to.
Yeah, I relate to that wholeheartedly. I was telling you earlier. I really love your writing. It's just such a developed balance of rhythm, melody, harmony. All in the right places, and the surprises are always there in the right places. And so I'm always curious, how did composing and playing the piano or any other instruments that you play inform how you play the drums then, and vice versa? How does the drums then inform the writing, as you continue to develop and experience music on both those ends of the, of those expression points?
Yeah, it's interesting, but I don't think I really separate those two things so much. It's more just kind of the way that I hear music in general, and then those things are expressed on different instruments.
Well, that's how it sounds.
Yeah.
That's how it sounds.
So the way that I play the drums is, I'm a much better drummer than I am a pianist, but I play the instruments kind of the same way. I just play the way that I hear stuff. This is what's important to me about what I'm hearing, and so it's a very similar way to play, I think.
So then, to go another 40,000 feet up from there, would you say that the way that you're talking to me is also an expression of how you play? The conversation itself, the way you interact in relationships in life, the way that you see the lake.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely, to a large extent. Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like it too.
That's great. Yeah. I like being able to be engaged, to put energy, to focus on, in general, like, nobody can really play and listen at the same time super effectively, but being able to do both very quickly, back and forth, and knowing that you need to do that to be able to react quickly. And there's a game aspect of it too, just to be on point, like really to be just engaged, as engaged as you can be, and reactive, and yeah, because conversation can certainly be that. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that, that listening and playing at the same time, almost like if you can slow time down in this other slow motion world, it almost is, the illusion is that it's happening at the same time, or the illusion actually is that it's separate. When you really have worked that muscle so strong that you can realize things where it feels like it's simultaneous, but it's actually not. But is it? I don't know if I always experience that when I'm playing, where I feel like I'm active and passive at the same time. Just because time just becomes that illusion thing.
Yeah, perception is so interesting there. I would say for me, maybe it's always, even when I play, it's passive in a way. It's like I might be playing, but I'm almost not in control of what I'm playing, and so it's just another part of listening.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm listening to this person play, and I'm listening to myself play, and I'm listening to this other person play, myself is just this other thing that I'm listening to, and I'm not really, I am playing that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm perceiving it stronger than I am thinking about what I'm playing. This is just what came out. So I'm mostly just a listener. So even when I'm playing, I'm kind of not. I feel like I'm not playing. I'm listening.
Yeah, because when I hear you play, you're so connected to that interplay.
Right.
It's almost like this merge has happened, where you're doing without doing. Right. It's that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So and just knowing you a little bit, your motor seems to be, a very fast one and a very strong one and a very energetic one. And, and to be able to harness all of that at the same time and kind of make it all work is really fun. And my segue with that actually is I just look at everything you're doing all the time. You're playing all the time, you're writing all the time, you're putting out content all the time. Boom, 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 boom. And, talking about your Patreon channel, the books you've written, the albums that you're putting out, all the touring and everything. How are you doing all of this? And I think the core of my asking that to you is what is the motor behind that? What's the mission and the purpose, and where does that dedication come from?
Good question.
'Cause there's a lot of fire in you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Why bother? I never even thought of that was an option. Now I'm going to rethink the whole thing. I'm like,
oh, no.
Well, yeah, John was telling me that I don't have to actually do all this stuff either. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I feel like, I'm kind of happier being engaged and doing stuff than not. And, I could spend, 3 months mixing a record, but I choose, there's the things that are more important to me. Like I choose to have somebody mix it for me and then send it to me, and then I make comments on it, instead of giving up a lot of extra time to do something like this. So I think I streamline stuff. I've tried to. I don't necessarily take as much time as I could with every single thing that I do. That's okay. So I think that's one of the reasons it seems that there's a lot of things, and I try to keep the quality as high as I can, but I also realize that, that there's a limit to what that's going to be. If I the more that I want to do, right? So making a record is a good example of what that is, so it's really important to me. The playing on the record is really important to me. But the production is something that I feel like, I can trust somebody else with most of the details about something like that. And I don't necessarily have to, dedicate 2 weeks every day of, going through everything like that. It's also, part of it's like just not the way I want to spend my time. I love the aspect of interaction, communication. I love playing live for that reason. I love creating new things on instrument, and just being creative with that. And that's my favorite thing to do, much more than playing a style of music. So like, I end up playing jazz. I like jazz, and I like a lot of kinds of music, but I play jazz because it's the one that lets me do things differently every time. Mm-hmm. It's the one that lets me go into a 3/4 on a 4/4 tune if I feel like it, or play a rock groove over something with changes briefly, or like I can really be able to be creative in the style of what people would expect from jazz. It's okay. It's legal, and I'm not able to do that with other kinds of music. Really, it's not just not that improvisational. So that's why that is kind of, and that's why I play that kind of music. But that's the way that I want to spend my time. I want to spend it doing those kind of things. And so, those are just the kind of things that I want to share too with other people, because I think it's what I feel passionately about. Mm-hmm. That's what I enjoy about it.
Makes sense to me. Hey, so and we're about to play something together. We have never played together before. So I just wanted to talk about that for a second. That idea of, okay, we're just gonna play. I'm gonna play some EVI, and you're gonna perhaps play some drums. I don't know. Okay. We'll see what instrument you pick up and want to play. But what is the the mindset going into this for you as we're gonna play something, we don't even know what we're gonna play, maybe we're gonna play something free. What are the things that you have to think about when you're entering in this new musical relationship and trying to make sense of it from that very beginning stage?
It's a great thought, and it's funny too, because the thing that you're just talking about right now is I just recorded a Patreon video about playing free.
Oh, really?
And really specifically that thought, which is like, how do I approach this with somebody that I've never played with before, or people that I've never played with before? What is my general approach? Like, so we haven't said anything about it, so maybe we won't play free, but maybe we're going to play tunes. Who knows, right? But let's say we do play free, and you say, I say, well, what do you want to play? And you say, you know what? I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Let's just play. So that's, to me, at least the mentality of playing free, which is we don't know what we're going to do. Let's just feel it out. And so then, well, how do you approach that? How do you go into the situation mentally with, somebody you've never played with before? You don't know what to expect, right? And what do you do or not do? And so it's interesting because I just wrote like a thing, and then I talked about it in the video. It just hasn't been released yet, but it will be, I think, next month. Which is, thoughts about how to play free improvisations, both solo and also with a group or with other people.
Yeah.
And what you think about. So, for you all listening, I'm not gonna expand on that right now, but I would say, think about it though for yourself. Like, what if you're in that situation of playing free? Like, how would you go about it? And then if you have more thoughts, check out my Patreon, because that's gonna have like all my. I think I even made like a list of things that maybe not. I can't remember exactly what I had in there, but I will give you a hint. It has a lot to do with listening.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you sat in with the Frost Jazz Orchestra today because we're playing your music and all the music that Ben Markley arranged and orchestrated of your music. You've never played with the band before. The band's never played with you. So and you made mention of it for a second. We're just feeling each other out, and establishing trust in a certain way. You're pushing to see how far can I push this.
Right.
Okay, now there's a line there I know, and
Right.
it's like this continual feeling out process, that has to go on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't stop just because you play with somebody a lot. Like
Right.
you can play with somebody a lot and you're still going to be in that zone.
It's a different moment every time.
Right.
Who knows what they're going through, something happened in the last 15 minutes and, you have to find where they are, find where you are.
Yeah.
And find.
But I would say that it is a mix between following and leading. Mm-hmm. And the leading part, the way that I talk about that is being generosity, instead of, because there's a positive, negative way you can talk about that. You can say, you can be leading, you can be overwhelm a situation. You can talk louder than you need to in a situation, or overpower a conversation with when it's not necessary, right? But I also see the value in giving of yourself, your own ideas, and there's definitely a time to listen and follow, and then there's a time to share, how you feel. And so music is a great way to look inside that,
Well, I think we should do this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we do it, is there any, so where can people find you beside on the Patreon channel?
Great, yeah.
Anything else you want to share with them?
So, I always love hearing from you guys, that are watching. I have all the regular, usual channels. My website, arihoenig.com, is a great way to find out what I'm doing and where I'm going to be and those kind of things. But general social media, Instagram and Facebook and, even TikTok and stuff like that has some basic information. I do recommend my educational stuff, my content, which is a lot of it is on Patreon at this point. I've been doing it for about 5 years. So I always, like to see new people checking out the content on that. but it's not limited to that. I have other educational stuff as well, but just general, generally, I look forward to hearing from you guys if you have interest in what I'm doing.
Thank you, Ari. All right, let's do this.
Got it.
Much gratitude, everyone, for checking out the podcast. Please just subscribe and follow and like and add a comment, as it really helps us expand and grow and keep us all connected together. So I appreciate it very much, and I send you much, much, much love. I'll see you on the next one.